All right, we are going to be diving into sleep deprivation with you guys. So, I was listening to a podcast a few weeks back, and one of the guests that dives into sleep deeply was talking about how 93%, I'm actually going to pull it up so that I say the quote, what he said right. Um, he said that 93% of excessive force situations in policing appear to occur immediately on the heels of shift change in officers who were sleep deprived. So I was really curious about this. So I started trying to find this research journal. This is a gentleman that I do know doesn't just search things on Google. He goes into third-party peer-reviewed journals. I wasn't able to find it, but when I searched for sleep deprivation and police, sleep deprivation fire, sleep deprivation EMS, it was amazing what popped up. There were basically, with everything, the consensus was the multitude of health issues. So things that I'm dealing with you guys, like um, the easy frustration, short fuse, gut issues, blood sugar regulation, weight gain, cognitive thinking, brain memory function, focus. You have metabolic disease. So with your testosterone is being off, the weight gain that I said, you get methylation, which is how your body actually how all your cells regenerate and repair is your methylation. And that can be thrown off by sleep. The way that your body detoxifies, because when you're in sleep, I'll get into that, your body's detoxifying. All kinds of things, cardiovascular disease, mistakes, and poor decision making. There were so many things comparing to blood alcohol levels on where it was beyond blood alcohol levels in a lot of the studies that I saw, where with these first responders, the sleep deprivation was at that point where um, they shouldn't have been driving. And the thing is most of you, fire, a little bit different. Um, you guys aren't all driving, but you guys shouldn't necessarily even be behind the wheel with the amount of sleep deprivation that is going on. And quite often we feel that this is a life sentence, right? So I'm really curious though, how many hours of sleep do you get a night? Let me know, put that in the comments. How many hours, how long does it take you to fall asleep? And how long do you stay asleep? Is it 2-hour chunks? Do you get 4 hours and you're awake? What is going on with your sleep? So we do need to absolutely recognize that when you're doing 24-hour shifts, when you're doing 12-hour shifts, and even without OT for some of you, by the time that you get out of work, commute home, and see your family, do the things you need to do, and get to sleep and have to be up and get yourself ready for your next shift and commute back to work, you don't have 8 hours. Like, you just don't. So we need to understand that that is a reality of your job. 24-hour shifts, even for a very slow station, if you are able to be in your bed during that time, the odds are that you're not shifting into a deep sleep, because a certain part of your stress system is still kicked in and not allowing you to get into that, because you still are staying on alert in case a call comes through. So we need to understand and acknowledge that that is just a part of your job. So what we need to do is make sure that on the rest of your shift, when you're on your days off, and for those of you that are doing 12s, that are getting, when you are getting your sleep, that you're able to fall asleep easily. So your latency is the time it takes you to fall asleep. We want that to be 5 to 15, 20 minutes. That's it. So we want your latency to be short, and we want you to be able to get into really good rhythms of sleep. We want deep sleep, which is the part of sleep that allows your brain to process what happened that day, your nervous system repair, your immune system. That's where everything repairs. And then the REM sleep is that creative one where you're dreaming, and that allows you to problem solve, to really big picture think, for creativity. If you're really trying to figure out how to solve things or how to really create a project, that's where that part of the REM sleep comes in. So it's really important to be able to get both of those, and we need to have those in really good cycles throughout your sleep, so that when you're waking up, you're feeling like your battery is full. So, I mean, how many of you, it's very, very rare that I speak to any of you where your battery is actually full. So I want to dive into some things with sleep right now, because quite often, a lot of the research out there, a lot of the things that you're hearing, it's always talking about circadian rhythms. And when you're doing, your shifts are all over the place when you're flipping from days to nights, or you've got days, mids, and graves, like you've got the three, or with 24 hours, you're all over the map. So we need to look at this more from the lens of a first responder and dive into it from there. Okay, so I have a couple of things here. So the first one that I wanted to go into is the health risks, which I did touch on some of them. But I want to just go through a little bit more with you so you can really understand. So when you are sleep deprived, your thinking slows down. You have a reduced attention span, and your memory worsens. Poor and risky decision making and lack of energy. Now, starting to look at some of these where you have that reduced attention span, slow thinking, you start looking at the definition of ADD. And ADD symptoms are very similar to sleep deprivation symptoms. And we have noticed that we have quite a few come into the program who have been diagnosed with adult onset ADD or ADHD and are on their medications. And we find that once we start getting their sleep on track, those disappear. It's absolutely phenomenal. There's such a correlation to it that I was recently reading a book as well, Sleep to Win by Dr. Kirk Parsley. He was a former Navy SEAL, and he talks about actually the relationship between sleep deprivation and ADD as well, in how with a lot of cases where kids are being diagnosed, high school kids, circadian rhythm switch. So any of you that have high schoolers, they actually need to sleep in later. Their circadian rhythms change for the adolescent ages. So they need to sleep a little bit later in the morning, and they actually stay up later at night. They're in a little bit of a different rhythm there. And when they have early classes and all of that, they get into sleep deprivation. And we see a higher risk of, when they're also then on screens in the evenings, higher risks of ADD, ADHD diagnosis in high school as well. We've been noticing it in first responders. So we get into these cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, immunodeficiencies, so where your immune system can't heal. So this can go into workouts where you can't heal from workouts. You start getting nagging injuries, you get inflammation, you start getting a lot of, start getting all kinds of diseases happening. You can't fight off colds, flus, allergies get worse. Then your hormones get off. So I'm going to dive into that with the next one, with my next point, pain. So you may find as well that your tolerance for pain decreases the more tired that you are. And then we get into mental health issues. Anxiety, depression kicks in, bipolar disorder. There is some links between not the onset of them, but exacerbating different mental health conditions such as bipolar. It is really, really important to understand that everything that you guys are testing people for when you're doing all the alcohol testing and all that, this is the same. And we're in a time right now where in policing is so friggin' stressful. As far as your safety on the job and you being out there, and with having that decrease in cognitive abilities, with having that decrease in you getting out there, having to make quick reactive decisions and you're not being able to, body not healing, and then you have to tactically take care of yourself. You are putting yourself at risk the more that you are sleep deprived. Okay, so let's dive into my next. We just covered the health risks. The next one is the hormones. So your stress system manages 50 different hormone responses. And with these hormone responses, how it works is you have your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. It is your energy waking hormone. And it is supposed to be highest when you're waking. And that's when you're supposed to wake up clear headed, where you have enough energy, your battery's full to make it through your day. And as you're going through your day, you get a dip midday a little bit, and then it goes, and then it keeps lowering until it's time to go to sleep. And your melatonin is supposed to be increasing then. But every time that you have stress hormones kicking in, every time that you're sleeping at night, or sorry, you're awake at night when you're working on shift, it throws off all of these hormones. As well, your glucose hormone is always rushing through your body. And we find that with sleep deprivation, it really already messes up your insulin levels. That we find too that when people are sleep deprived, they also waking after a couple of hours sleep because their body thinks they are in a sugar low, that they have no food, and this is a major emergency. So you start getting all these insulin issues, glucose issues, and what is supposed to happen though is your melatonin is supposed to kick in. When your natural melatonin kicks in, that's when all of these other hormones start doing their job, realigning themselves, healing themselves, detoxifying, which for fire, you guys, like, you need your detoxification processes on track. And when they are off, that's when you get these buildup of more toxins. You guys have such a high exposure. And these toxins start building up more beyond what is already just the burden of our day-to-day toxins that we come in contact with. And as your body can't detox those, we start getting kidney and liver struggles. We also, you get anxiety, depression, a lot of memory issues, anger, short fuse, all kinds of things can even come from that. Then it starts throwing off your testosterone. We start getting where your testosterone goes off. It can either be getting stolen by your estrogen or moved into your cortisol. And it just starts this whole slew of hormonals. It's this cascade effect of throwing off all of these hormones, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, all of these things start getting thrown off. So it's really important to be getting that sleep. And so when we have people come into our program initially, we do testing for their hormones. And that is the precursor. We do that before we start teaching them about sleep and about the sleep habits. There are so many things out there. There's your weighted blankets. I'm just hearing about like the red light blankets, which are almost like a sleeping bag cocoon. Definitely not great for a relationship, but you sleep in this and it's an infrared blanket that you'd be sleeping in all day. There's all of these really great, interesting biohacking tools out there. But the thing is that it doesn't matter if you are doing absolutely every single step that you need to do before bed, according to all of the biohacking things out there, and how much money you're spending on all of these biohacking tools. If your hormones are out of alignment, if they are not working the way that they should, if things are off, then you're not going to be able to, you're going to struggle with either falling asleep, staying asleep, or those of you that could sleep forever are still going to wake up groggy, feeling almost hungover. So we need to first address those hormones. And it's different for each of you. It really is. There's also some things that we need to be cognizant of as well. If you're on certain medications, there's things like theanine. Oh man, it's in the States. There's another one that's often in theanine in some of the sleeps. XTP. It'll come to me. I should know this one. But when you are, I keep thinking about this the supplement, but some of these supplements you need to be very, very cautious of, because if you are taking them when you have certain prescriptions, especially like sleeping pills, anxiety, depression pills, then it's actually contraindicated, and it's not good. So be careful with taking over-the-counter things. Really make sure that they're working with any of the prescriptions that you are taking. Okay, so it's really important. Get these hormones on track. We do a Dutch test that goes through and checks your whole hormonal pathway for your stress system. So we start off with pregnenolone and kind of describe it as like a mountain, where you have pregnenolone at the top, it splits and does two jobs. So that's water going down the mountain, splits and does more jobs and keeps going down. So when I'm talking about testosterone being stolen by cortisol or estrogen, they're almost side by each. So if you have the testosterone down here, cortisol is on the side of it. So it's almost like there's been a rock slide on the testosterone that's saying, hey, yeah, you're not going down this path. So it either chooses to go down the cortisol path or down the estrogen path. So we need to make sure that all of your stress hormones are floating down the right pathways first, and only then will, I mean, the sleep tips definitely are helpful and beneficial, but you may still struggle to fall asleep. You may still struggle to stay asleep. You may not wake up, even if you are finally getting to sleep, with that full battery. So making sure that those hormones are on track is honestly the key thing, the first thing that you need to do. And then we start digging into the sleep habits. So here's one thing is, most of you guys are you're goal oriented, you're high achievers, you're hard workers. And because of that, and on top of that, the family guilt, quite often sleep takes a back seat. And as soon as you start letting sleep take its back seat, where you're not even giving yourself 8 hours on your days off to be in bed, or you're not creating really good sleep habits before you're falling asleep in order to also help those hormones do what they need to do. So first we need to get the hormones supported and working the way that they're supposed to, and then doing the sleep habits that will signal those hormones that, hey, this is the time for me to be sleeping and kicking in and doing my job. So we need to be very cognizant of these things. Absolutely, when you're getting home at 7 in the morning off of shift, you're not like, yeah, I'm going to sit here and do a 2-hour routine before I go to sleep in order to get these hormones there. There are some really quick and dirty tricks that we can be teaching you, but none of them are going to work. And us looking into your hormones is going to be for nothing if you are not going to really prioritize your sleep and really make sure that your sleep time is really a priority. Like, think about it. If your sleep is at that point where your cognitive thinking is impaired, your cholesterol, weight, healing, inflammation, all of these things are being impaired, you are pretty much like an impaired person. And you have to make split decisions on the job. There are some of you that I speak to who I know, flight paramedics, different paramedics, who say that there are times that things they should know, things that just are usually automatic for them, sometimes their mind draws a blank while they are with somebody. This puts your job, your security, everything at risk. So it is important. Fire. There's things, protocols you guys need to do, steps when you're in fire. There's things in order to keep yourself, your team safe. And when you don't have that ability to be thinking of things, remembering things, for things that should just be completely habitual for you to not be, that puts your safety and risk on the job. And for officers, we're seeing what's going on with officers right now, where the stress of just going to these calls is horrible. You don't know who has a gun, what their intentions are, what you're going into for any call, no matter what it is. that your stress is already heightened. Add sleep deprivation into that, and your thinking, your thoughts, your abilities to really be big picture think and get into there are diminished. So sleep deprivation is a matter of life or death for all of you guys, your career security. And then it starts leaching into home, the short fuse at home, not being able to focus, no motivation and drive. All of these things are key components. So it's really, really important for you guys to make sure that you are honoring that. If we also look at it from the point of a professional athlete, with a professional athlete, they could have all of the coaches in the world. They could have somebody cooking them the best food, have mindset coaches, mental coaches, physiotherapists, trainers, technical coaches, all of these things. But if they're not sleeping, none of those things are going to help them. So how are they going to help you? So really making sure that you are giving yourself that space, doing the steps that you need. So making sure that you are getting your hormones checked, getting them realigned. And when I'm saying hormones checked, I'm not saying by an endocrinologist. Quite often they're looking for different markers, disease markers, and different things that they're that they're trained to be looking for. They're not looking for the markers that help your stress system sleep. They're not looking for the markers that help your stress system to be supported and realigned for that of a first responder. They're really looking at everything from a disease marker. So they may tell you that things are okay because they're not in disease state yet, even though you're starting to feel these symptoms and your sleep is getting off. You're not at that point yet where you're in like Addison's disease. So really understanding that there is a difference between the functional side of the testing and the medical side. All right, so let me know what questions you have on that. Sleep deprivation is huge for all of you. It is really the root of everything. Once we start getting your sleep on track, we start being able to make gains on everything else, on your guts, on all the gut issues. The short fuse goes down. Just the ability to want to start doing things, getting back to the gym, getting that adrenaline rush again. All of these things start to come back to you once you start dealing with the sleep first, and then we can start working on all of these other factors. Okay, any questions? Let me know. You can reach us at support@911lifestyle.com. Anything that you say to us is completely between us. We are not associated with any service, and we are absolutely here for you. So throw all of your questions at us and be safe.